Welcome to the video for constructing the zipper pocket. The first thing that we're going to do is find the center of the top edge and bottom edge of both of our liner panels. So I'm going to fold this in half and make a little notch right here in the center. And then do the same thing on the bottom edge. And I'm going to repeat that on the second liner panel. It's also a good time to do the same thing to the upper contrast pieces. So fold those in half as well and clip the center. All right, and we can put these aside until we're ready to attach them. Next, choose the liner panel that you would like to have your zipper overlay attached to. And we're going to measure from the top edge of the liner panel 1 3/4 inches down. So a little trick that I do so that I know that my zipper overlay is centered on my panel is I have a 12-inch ruler here, and I am placing my ruler 1 3/4 inches down from the top edge, but also my 6-inch mark, which is the halfway mark of my ruler. I'm placing that right at the center notch that we just cut into the top of our panel. And that way I know where to place my overlay so that it will be centered on the panel. So I'm going to flip this up and I'm going to take off the paper from the tape of just one of the lines. So leave the paper on the other line of tape. And that way you can position one side of your overlay without sticking the other side down quite yet. And that is centered right there. And I'm going to just softly position it so that I can stick it down where I want. And the reason that I don't take the tape off of the other side quite yet is there could be a tendency to maybe stick it down a little too far this way or a little too far this way, and then the overlay gets kind of warped. So once I have this side stuck down, I'm going to lift this up and pull the paper off of this tape. And then I just let it go. I just let it fall where it wants to fall naturally, and then I come back in and I pat it down. So that way your overlay won't be warped or crooked or anything like that. So just check and make sure that it looks straight, and it does. And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to top stitch all the way around the outside of the overlay. And what you want to do is start wherever you want to start. It doesn't really matter where you start your stitches, but you do want to pull long threads from your needle at the beginning and then begin to top stitch all the way around. Don't backstitch at the start or the stop. We are going to pull the threads to the back and tie them off later. Okay, I have pulled long threads from my needle and I'm just going to begin stitching without backstitching. And I'm going to go slow and just go down the outside edge of the overlay. And once I approach one of the corners, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to do one stitch and then pivot, one stitch and then pivot. And that way you can get really smooth corners. Okay, one stitch pivot, one stitch pivot, and then go around that corner. Okay. So we're approaching the last corner, and this is where I began my stitches right here. So I'm going, before I end my stitch line, I am going to lift this up and pull on the back thread so that the front thread loops, and then I can pull the front thread to the back. So now there's no long threads on the front of the overlay, and that way I can come around this corner and end with my needle down in the hole of the very first stitch and pull long threads and trim them off. And that prevents the threads from getting tangled if you pull them to the back before you end your stitch line. So I'm going to just carefully go around this corner. And then I'm going to end with my needle down in the hole of the first stitch. Raise my needle and pull long threads. So you can see here, you can't even tell where I started and stopped because my needle ended in the hole of the first stitch. So now I only have one long thread and our entire overlay has been stitched on the outside of the overlay. So I'm just going to turn this over and I'm going to pull on my threads to bring that front thread to the back. And I'm going to tie all 4 threads off. And I like to do 3 knots. And then when I trim off the threads, I don't trim too close to the knot. Okay, so let's flip this over. And what we're going to do next is we are going to cut down the center of the zipper window, and we're only cutting through the liner panel. We're not cutting through the overlay. So I'm just going to kind of fold it like this and then snip to get started. And then I'll put my scissors through. And I'm just cutting the liner panel. And then once I get to this side, I'm going to put the point of my scissors underneath the overlay and just snip a little bit farther than that edge. And I'm going to turn this over and do the same thing on the other side just to get a little bit farther than the window. And then when you flip this to the back, you're able to get your scissors underneath your cut. Sorry, my hand was in the way. Like that. And then you're going to trim away the liner panel all the way down the overlay, making sure not to snip the overlay. I'm just trimming away, and it does not have to be pretty because you're never going to see this edge. So mine's going to look really choppy, and that is okay. I got to the other side, and I'm going to cut that off and then go down the other side. And I'm being really careful not to cut the overlay. And then I'm going to chop that off. All right, so as you can see, the liner panel has been cut away from the zipper window. And when you see it from the front, you can now see through the zipper window with no liner in the way. Next, we are going to add the zipper to our zipper pocket liner. And I have here my 9.5 inch zipper. And I want to point out that the teeth length is 9.5 inches. So if you have a zipper that's not cut from continuous zipper tape yardage, and you might have like an extra bit of tape on the ends, just make sure that your teeth length is 9.5 inches. So I have this cut, and I'm actually going to flame the ends so that they don't fray later. And then we are going to baste this zipper to the zipper pocket liner. And I'm going to place the zipper right side up so that the wrong side of the zipper is against the right side of the zipper pocket liner. And I'm just going to clip that in place really quick here. So you can see that the width of the zipper pocket liner is also 9.5 inches. So it's just the full length of the zipper. And I'm going to baste that to the edge of the zipper pocket liner. Okay, there's that zipper basted to the edge of the zipper pocket liner. And next we are going to take the other side of the liner and we're going to fold it up so that the liner is right sides together and baste it to the other side of the zipper. So the wrong side of the zipper is against the right side of the liner. We're going to clip that. Now I like to baste the zipper before I put the zipper pull on, because then I don't have to work around the pull with my presser foot. And so the next step is going to be adding double-sided tape. And I also like to do that before adding my pull, because then you don't have a bump in the zipper tape that you have to work around with your double-sided tape. So it's just a straight edge. Go down each edge of the zipper with your double-sided tape. So you can see here, there's the 2 lines of double-sided tape down the edge of the zipper. And now's the time I'm going to add my zipper pull. So the way that I do it is I look at the end of the zipper teeth and I look for which side of the zipper has the last tooth on it. And for me, that's this side of the zipper. So when I separate, that's the side of the zipper I'm going to put into the pull first. So I'm going to put that side in first. And then I'm going to look down the back of the pull and add the other side. And then I'm just going to kind of move the tape around inside the pull until they align the same way they were before I added the pull. So the last tooth of the zipper is still on this side. And that way you don't have it uneven in front of the pull. And I only pull it on halfway as well. Next, we are going to be adding the zipper and the pocket liner behind the zipper overlay. So we are going to remove the paper from the DST on the zipper. And I'm only going to remove one side of the zipper tape. And I'm going to center the zipper within the window. And the way that I like to do it is I like to center the zipper on the short edges of the window first before I stick it down. And then this one over here. So the zipper teeth is centered within this short edge of the window. And stick that part down. So that top portion is now stuck down. And then I'm going to remove the paper from the other piece of tape. And then stick that portion down as well, making sure everything is straight and centered. So my zipper is inside the box, and we are going to sew this zipper in 2 parts. First, we are going to make sure that our zipper pocket liner is pulled up and out of the way. And we're going to start with our needle down right on the outside of this edge here. And we're going to stitch along the bottom edge of the pocket, and we're going to stop with our needle down just on the other side of the box. And we're going to pull long threads before we begin stitching, and we're going to pull long threads at the end as well, so we can pull them to the back and tie them off. So again, I'm going to start with my needle just below the bottom edge of the window and to the outside of the window as well. Okay, once I approach the pull, I'm going to lift my presser foot and move the pull behind my presser foot, and then keep sewing. Okay, I'm approaching the other side of the box. So right now my needle is down, pretty much aligned with the edge of the box, the side of the box. So I'm going to stitch one more. So I'm just past the box. And then I'm going to lift my needle and pull long threads. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here's where I started my stitch line. I am just on the other side of the box, and I stitched a straight line all the way across the bottom of the box, and I ended just on the other side of the box. And I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to pull on those threads from the back. So that the threads from the front can come to the wrong side of the pocket, and I'm going to tie those off. Next, I have made the pocket point down again so that it is no longer pointing up and out of the way. And we are going to start with our needle down right in the very last stitch hole from the bottom top stitching, and we're going to go up the side of the box and then pivot to sew across the top, and then stop just on the other side of this edge and sew down, and stop with your needle down in the very first hole of the stitch line. And we're going to pull long threads at the start and stop again. And before I put my needle down, I like to kind of tug on the liner to make sure that it is all the way flat, because if it's kind of bunched up right here, you're going to sew that bunch into the top stitching, so you don't want that. And I'm going to be careful to place my needle right in that hole of the bottom stitch line, and I'm going to go up the side of the box a little bit farther than the edge of the box, and then I'm going to sew down this top edge. Okay, and I'm going to lift my presser foot and move my pull behind my presser foot, and then I can keep going without having that bump to get around. All right, I'm just at the edge of the box, so I'm going to go one more stitch and pivot and sew down the side of the box. All right, here is my completed zipper top stitching, and I have 2 long threads at the front. So I'm going to flip this over and tug on the threads that are on the back so that I can pull those to the wrong side of the pocket. And I'm going to tie those off. So here is what your zipper pocket should look like from the back. And what we're going to do next is we are going to lay the pocket liner flat, and we're going to trim across the bottom of the pocket liner so that we separate the 2 sides. And that way we can have an opening at the bottom of our liner so that we can close our liner at the very end of construction. So what I do is I actually put my scissors in the liner of the bag just like this, and I kind of hold it and pull my scissors towards me as I cut, and then just trim all the way across, and that way you have a nice straight line. And now I have 2 pieces of liner that are separated, and we are going to stitch down the sides of the liner by flipping this right side up and then folding the liner panel over to expose the side of the pocket. Now for me, I still have some double-sided tape on the zipper, so I'm just going to pick that off really quick because that's going to interfere with my presser foot. It's going to stick to my presser foot, and then I won't be able to sew forward. So I'm just going to pick that off really quick so that there's no sticky on the zipper. And then I'm just going to sew down the side of this zipper pocket. And I'm going to make sure that I'm back stitching over the zipper teeth a couple times just to secure those. And then sew all the way to the bottom of the pocket. And back stitch at the bottom. That's very important to back stitch at the bottom really well. And next we are going to lift the other side and do the same thing. We're going to sew up the other side of the pocket liner to close that off, back stitching over the teeth of the zipper really well and making sure that there's no DST on the zipper tape. All right, we now have a completed zipper pocket that is open on the bottom but has both of its sides closed up.